Hello, Bookstackers. Welcome to the recording of this week's meeting. We recorded this last Saturday where we discussed chapters 1 and 2. I really hope that you can make the next meeting. We're going to be meeting this coming Saturday at 10 a.m. We're going to have links in the description below. You can join us on the Zoom app. It's a free app, and you can come in and discuss it. We have video conferencing. We really have a great time. I really hope that you get a lot out of the discussion. I hope you get as much out of it as we did. We had a really great time, and we're going to introduce the video now, and I hope you enjoy it.
Does anybody have anything they want to share about the first two chapters?
You mean to talk about how offended I was?
if you would like.
Well, I mean, I was when I was reading the first chapter where he was talking about elementary reading levels and people being ignorant and stuff like that. I kind of, when I was first reading that, I was like, man, this guy's like dogging me. But then as I got into the second chapter, I realized that, as he's going through the different levels of reading, he wasn't trying to put anybody down. He's just identifying what the different levels are. And so, as I'm reading it, I'm identifying myself and where I am in those levels and realizing that probably not where I thought I was, based on his analogy. So, the more I got into it, I realized that he wasn't calling anybody stupid or saying what the levels are. And you just kind of figure out where you are in that, in the grand scheme of things. And then it was, I understood that it, he's just saying what the levels are, and I just kind of figured out where I was in the realm of the levels.
Yeah, and like I was saying, I've given friends books before that they've read and they've said, man, this was kind of difficult to read, or I didn't really understand what was happening. The words were kind of difficult. The sentence structure was kind of difficult. And, and I'd let them know, well, this is a 9th or 10th grade reading level type book. And again, it's not to put anybody down, but it's just, it is interesting. And that's part of the reason why I did want to select this work, is because I wanted people to kind of get an idea of where they were. Because I didn't want, my original idea was to start with the Iliad. And I was like, that might be kind of high level for a lot of people, for the majority of people, and I really wanted to attract people who wanted to read and wanted to get into reading, but maybe didn't know where to start. And so I thought, like when you're trying to find your way around a mall, the first thing you want to do is find out where you are. And so that's where I kind of chose this one, so we can find out where we were and learn the skills and techniques to get to where we want to be. Because again, it's like when you're learning how to drive. I think I put this in one of the videos. It's a lot of information, check the brake, check the gas, check your lights, make sure your blinkers work, check your mirrors, check your blind spot. And it seems like it's a lot of information. It can be sensory overload, and you think it's going to be, man, how am I ever going to learn how to drive? And then now you do it and you don't even think about it. It just happens naturally. And I think that's what it is here. It seems like it's a lot. When you get into the book, it's going to be like, man, I got to do all this just to read a book. And that's really not, it's really not all that. It's, eventually you're going to do it. Here's all the different pieces and parts, and eventually you're just going to do it subconsciously, and it's just going to be something that you just do naturally, that you're not even going to have to think about it. But up front, it does seem like it's a lot. And so it is good to find out where you are, because reading is a skill. You can be good at it, you can be bad at it. And with it being a skill, the more you do it and the more you work at it, the better you can get. And so that's kind of an important thing to keep in mind as we're going through, that we're looking to be better readers. So anybody else have anything they want to share? Any other thoughts?
I like that you, what the book taught me and what Jim was saying is that it doesn't matter what level you're at. Once you start working on it and practicing and learning more and more, that you can get to a level to where you can read syntopically and be able to form your own opinions based on your vast knowledge that you've learned from reading all these different experts and different books, rather than just relying on what other people tell you that you should think.
Yeah, and that's one thing that hit me a lot too, was he says, what, the media gives us all the information we need so we can form our own opinions, and all it's really doing is handing your opinion to you. And I've seen several people who go out and they don't even think about what they've been told on the radio or what they've been told on TV. when that topic comes up, they just parrot back exactly what that person says. I've been guilty of doing this with the sports. I don't keep up with sports a lot. I don't watch a lot of sports. I don't know enough to form my own opinions about that. But if I'm watching ESPN, if I go to get my haircut and they're playing the game or they're playing this sportscaster's, he's giving his opinion. When I meet up with my friends, I'm like, hey, this is what I think about this idea. And it's not my thought. It's Stephen A. Smith or whomever is, given their ideas. And I'm just repurposing them and repackaging them. And one of my favorite quotes is think before you speak, read before you think. And I think that's a powerful quote that most people don't do. We don't read things that challenge our way of thinking, and we don't have other people often that challenge our way of thinking. We have this idea that everyone's entitled to their own opinion, and I challenge that idea a lot. I really don't think everyone's entitled to an opinion on everything. It's like, well, I'm just a human being, so I can say what I want on whatever topic I want. And yeah, you can, but it doesn't mean that your opinion has to be taken seriously or that it has to even be valid or validated. I think you get valid and validated opinions once you've put them to the test. And not only have you read to challenge your way of thinking, but you've also had discussions concerning those ideas to really, find out what is it that you really believe? What do you really think? And I think that will allow you to really, as information's coming in from outside over the TV, over the internet, like, my wife and I, we've gone to the doctor or whatever, and they'll tell us, they'll say something, and like, okay, I'm not a doctor, but I'm just saying that what you just said, that doesn't make any sense. Like one time, she had hurt her wrist or something, and the doctor's like, well, I don't know what's wrong, but here's a prescription. And I was like, well, hold on a second. You're prescribing medication for something that you don't know what the problem is. Again, I'm not a doctor, but that doesn't make any sense to me. And most people are just like, oh, well, they're the doctor, whatever they say goes, and on and on and on. And again, I'm not trying to diagnose. I'm just saying that I don't, by default, whatever person tells me, that I automatically say, yep, that's true. And that's just the truth now. And I can't do anything. I can't think against it or challenge it in any way. That's just not who I am. I'm going to really evaluate it and test it to make sure that it makes sense and that it's valid before I kind of say, you know what, I'm going to change my thinking and my worldview to kind of accommodate that person's view as well. I mean, I don't know if that makes sense to anybody else.
Yeah, that makes sense. And it sounds a lot like what he was talking about when he talked about instruction and discovery. Because he talked about how I wrote, okay, sorry, I'm corny. I totally do cards, no cards. But he talks, one of the things he said, and I think page number is page 11, he says that being informed is a prerequisite to being enlightened, that meaning you want to read so that you understand. The ultimate is to understand what the author said and then what he means and why he's saying it. But a lot of times we just know what they said. Like, and I think later on he talked about ignoramus, I think is the word he used, people who have read a lot, but they haven't read well. Yeah. So it's like they kind of know a lot of, I guess, facts, but they didn't really understand the content of what the author was trying to say. But they kind of have that. They have the checklist of facts. And it was a little bit, for me, it was interesting because I feel like I've read a lot, but when I go back and try to think of, okay, what did I pick up from that? What, like you said, what affected my worldview based on thinking that? There are some things that I know if I devoted enough time to them or gave it, like when I was reading, like with a class or whatever, I feel like I was able to draw out things. But then on the whole, the majority of things that I read, they're kind of locked in. It was fun while it lasted, and it didn't. I don't know that I picked up everything the author was trying to say. That was his analogy. My favorite so far metaphor that he used was the catcher, the pitcher, and the ball, and how the distinction between what they do in baseball and just throwing that solid one ball versus what a writer does to a reader is that the ball itself or the written work, they're actually, whereas you can catch one whole ball. When it comes to reading, you can get it you can completely misread what the author was trying to say. I mean, there's variations. And I kind of have that same goal as you. Like, I want to, even if I don't agree with it, I want to be able to get what they were trying to say.
Yeah. What's funny is I recorded a video on something that happened on Facebook. I decided not to post it because it was a little controversial. The topic was controversial, and I didn't want people to miss my point focusing on the topic, because the concepts apply to all topics. And one of it is, you can completely miss what a person is trying to say, but also I'm trying to remember what specifically. Oh, just the how language can be. So language is what we use to communicate with each other, and it can be ambiguous, and that's what we have to, when he comes, for some other chapters, he talks about coming to terms with an author so that we understand the terms. If we don't understand the terms, and we aren't going to understand the arguments that the author is making. If we don't understand the arguments, we're going to kind of miss the point. And if we don't evaluate properly, we're gonna basically communicating is kind of moot if we're not getting at what the other person. And you can disagree with another person. I can disagree with you so long as I have valid reasons for disagreeing. It's I don't agree with you, not because. And again, he talks about this a lot, and I love that he says this in a book, because I say to my friends all the time. I was like, you can say that you don't like what I'm saying, or that you don't like this point, but what is it about it that you don't agree with? And I don't want to get too far ahead in the book, but is the person uninformed? Are they misinformed? Are they illogical? Are they incomplete in their thought? But if you say, you know what, you're informed, you're not misinformed, you're exactly informed, you're logical, and you were complete in the conclusions you drew from the information you had, but I still don't agree with you. He's like, no, you don't have the right to say that. What you're saying is you don't like what I said. You didn't like it, but you have to say that you agree with it because you checked all 4 boxes. And so if you do disagree, then you say, okay, well, you're misinformed or you're uninformed. Okay, what information am I missing? Or, your conclusions you're drawing are incomplete. Okay, well, where am I missing? And that's what I like, that most conversations are had on an emotional level, and that is not where ideas are formed, and it's not where worldviews are formed. They're formed on information, and they should be formed on logic. But if we're not familiar with how to accumulate and evaluate information, and we're not sure how to fit that information in with other things by using logic, then having a discussion of worldviews isn't where we are. We're not having a discussion up here. We're having a discussion down here on emotions. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again, that emotions are not an evaluator of truth, because truth can be ugly, and we don't like it. We don't want that to be the truth, but that has nothing to do with whether or not it's true or not. Nothing at all. So.
Well, I think what you're saying is really unpopular for this generation, honestly. And just to be honest, because we're kind of at this place where we're like, I'm not really sure if there's a truth, there's your truth, there's my truth, and it's like this idea that we can both be right. It's Ravi Zacharias talked about talking to either or the reality, or the there's either or it's what's the alternative, which is just kind of
both and.
Both and it's like, I feel like this generation, not that I feel, I know this generation, they don't want to hear, like when we argue, we can both be right, even if we have completely opposite views. Yep. And they're not necessarily looking for truth in anything. It's just kind of like, I'm looking for some kind of approval for what I already feel like should be the case, but there's no objective truth that we're actually going towards. You may as well not be having a conversation, because you have no aim, no point in the conversation that you're having. But that's what, when you said truth, I'm like, wait a minute, some people don't even think that there is, in logic, like there's a point, like there's an answer, like this principle plus A plus B could be 12, or it could be, C plus D, and you can't tell me otherwise, because there's no way, like, and the phrase that's more popular is like, you can't judge me. Like, it becomes about something that it's not. Like, actually, right. I can do the math on that and see that is wrong, but it's like, that's not what we're doing now when we argue, or when we discuss things anymore. We're not looking, if we took truth out of it, and everyone can be right.
Yeah. It's the death of truth, and it's the death of the pursuit of truth. And again, that's why I like reading so much, and that's why I think everyone should do it, because I think once you begin to read, you start, you get that little inkling of, man, this is either true or false, and I need to be able to evaluate it. And if you can't evaluate it, well, then I need to learn how to evaluate it. And truth by nature is exclusive. Truth excludes everything else that's not true. And if you say, well, there is no truth, it's like, well, then either A, the statement that you made isn't true, which then, invalidates your statement, or your statement is true, then what you just said is true, isn't true, which then invalidates you. So making the statement there is no truth is an invalid statement. And I've heard another person say, well, only things which can be scientifically verified or mathematically worked out can be proven, and that those are the only things which are true. Problem with that is what you just said can neither be scientifically validated and cannot be mathematically proven. So just the statement that you just made, completely invalidates your entire argument. And so that's what I really want, is people just to think. And that's really the main thing I want to get people to, is I just want people to think. Because, and again, I'm going to do a video on this, our whole nation, our whole democratic society, the whole system requires an educated and active populace. And if people are no longer able to evaluate arguments and to think for themselves, then they can just be told anything and they'll believe it. And it's deception. And so, again, if there's no sense in worrying about deception if there is no truth, obviously there's a truth to be concealed and a truth to be deceived. And we have to be able to evaluate and seek out that truth, because if we don't, then who knows where we're going to be. Again, it's, not to make this a religious thing, but, it's like the problem with not believing in God is not that you'll believe in nothing, it's that you'll end up believing in anything. And if we don't believe that there's a truth, it's not that we end up believing in nothing, it's we will end up believing in anything, and our lives can take any course. And that's just dangerous. I don't think people often see the danger. We've seen nations go directions because of their removal from a pursuit of truth, and it's dangerous and it's destructive. So we have less than a minute. I don't know if anybody else has any final questions or comments, but we're probably going to get cut off. Again, I'm going to, find a way to make these a little bit longer. But
I wanted to say that it seems like it's easier to let other people think for you, but what this book has taught me is that it may seem easier, but it's important for me at whatever level you are to start, working the muscle and start learning how to read and read for myself and form my own opinion based on facts and truth that I find from other people, and not just rely on media and what it sounds good, and what everybody else believes.
Yeah, that's true. You can't just listen to Sean Hannity.
You can have one source of information. Not saying you can't, but if he's your sole source of information, your sole source of thought, I'd say that's probably a bad idea. That's a bad idea. All right. Well, I appreciate everybody showing up, and I thought we had another great discussion, another great meeting, and we're going to be doing this again maybe next Saturday morning, if that maybe works better for everybody. Maybe not. I don't know. We'll find a time that works better for everybody. So if you're watching this, the video, recording on YouTube, if you have an idea for a time that works better, put it in the comments below, and we'll see about maybe moving the time if it works better for everybody. All right. You guys have a great day.
Thank you, sir. Y'all have a good one.
Bye.
Man, this is what BookStack is about. It's about great books and great conversation. And so I really wanted to marry those two with this channel. Not only were we reading through books and you're doing it in your own home and I'm doing it in my own home, but I really wanted to come together and have great discussions about what we were reading, because I feel like not only does it reinforce what we're reading in our mind, but it also helps us to feel out and see how we really truly feel about what it is we're reading and express ourselves, and maybe the truths that we're encountering or the things that we don't agree with that we're encountering, but we can have those discussions with each other and really challenge each other on our ways of thinking. So again, we're going to have another meeting this coming Saturday at 10 a.m. link in the description, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and don't forget to share these videos as well. If you're enjoying them, be sure to share them with your friends, and I'll catch you in the next video.